Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. This file is being recorded for the April 2024 edition of Socialism for All, and it's an audiobook and discussion of Shall the Communist Party Change Its Name? With contributions from Earl Browder, Eugene Dennis, Roy Hudson, and John Williamson from 1944. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and consider supporting on Patreon at patreon.com/socialismforall, or buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/socialismforall. There are links to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee in the video description. This channel is non-commercial and doesn't run ads or do sponsorships, so if you like this content and learn something from it, thank me, but also thank a patron or Buy Me a Coffee contributor and consider becoming one yourself. Alright, so this piece is another installment in our First Wave USA Anti-Revisionism playlist, also known as the Anti-Browderism playlist. So the last two texts that we posted in this playlist were from Browder also. The first of the two, concerning the future of the Anglo-American Soviet alliance, is not awful. It has a few pretty questionable things, but overall is not completely terrible. However, the second one, Tehran, History's Greatest Turning Point, is just replete with absolutely awful anti-Marxist statements. If you're just joining us on this text, I would encourage you to actually open up the playlist and go back at least a few, if not all the way to the beginning, to get more context for what we're talking about. But basically in the last one, Browder was going on and on about how post-World War II, there was going to be this grand alliance between the US and the Soviet Union. Obviously, instead, we got McCarthyism domestically and the Cold War internationally. And about the closest that we came to actually getting a realization of a grand alliance between the US and the USSR was under the revisionist leadership of Nikita Khrushchev in the later 50s and 1960s, which started to embrace the reformist parties of Western Europe, with very questionable logic behind that, as discussed extensively in our Sino-Soviet split playlist. But anyway, it was on this path that the USSR, by some criticisms, became a social imperialism, that is, a country that had started to build socialism, but was slipping back into some behaviors of the next highest level of historical development, late-stage capitalism or imperialism. So to the extent that that did constitute a redivision of the world among imperialist or social imperialist competitors, well, that's about the extent of the collaboration, this grand post-war collaboration that Browder was foreseeing. And of course, it was at least outwardly very unfriendly between the US Anglo side and the USSR side. But anyway, why stop there? Why stop with opportunism and revisionism? Let's go for full liquidationism. Destroy the Communist Party. Well, that's what this General Secretary of the Communist Party had to contribute, as we'll see in this pamphlet. So we're going to go ahead and get started, but two quick notes first. Number one, if you want to hear more from Browder about the Tehran conference and the specifics of what the post-war alliance would be like, he actually wrote a ton about Tehran. It's either in the title of the thing or it's just mentioned in the text. But The Road Ahead to Victory and Lasting Peace from 1944 is a great example of more details of what he was thinking here. I've decided to omit that for the sake of time. We have a lot more readings to get to, but if you go to the Earl Browder archive at the Marxists Internet Archive, they have a ton you can read there. Note number two is that after this we will be getting back to the anti-Browder critics. However, note some of the names in this piece, such as John Williamson. They're going to reappear on the anti-Browder side, which leads to part 3 of the list, which is critics of even the anti-Browderists, that just a few years before, they were right alongside Browder, and they were part of the party leadership that was enabling and approving his policies. All right, so we begin with an introductory note. The interest in the recommendation to change the name of the Communist Party is not limited to communists alone. The proposed change has stirred wide discussion and comment, particularly in labor circles. This pamphlet contains excerpts dealing with this question from the speeches of Earl Browder, Eugene Dennis, Roy Hudson, and John Williamson at the meeting of the National Committee of the Communist Party held in New York on January 7 to 9, 1944. They are prefaced by an appeal for 25,000 new recruits to join the Communist Party. These speeches are brought together in one pamphlet because prospective members will want to know more about the political organization they're being asked to join. It is part of the democratic method of functioning of the communist organization to appeal to all potential recruits to join forces with it in achieving full political clarity and a deeper understanding of the enormous perspectives for historic progress opened up by the Tehran Agreement. Such clarity is the prerequisite for vigorous mobilization of the people to guarantee victory in 1944 in the military struggle against Hitler fascism and on the home front in the decisive election struggle that looms ahead. A larger, stronger, and politically more effective communist organization will help to strengthen the unity of labor and the nation behind the epical Tehran Declaration. The Communist Recruiting Drive. February 12, 1944. The 135th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln has been chosen as the day to open the drive for 25,000 new members of the Communist Party. Comment: some people in the comments on the last one remarked on the similarities between Browderite revisionism and the so-called PATSOCs, or patriotic socialists, who are active on social media today, including people close to Jackson Hinkle, Caleb Maupin, people like that. And actually, some of them were actually circulating pictures of this convention that had like a giant Abraham Lincoln head. Yeah, that is exactly what we're talking about, so you are correct there with that observation. Continuing, when Abe Lincoln, the son of a worker, undertook in 1861 the job of guiding our country through the war against slavery to preserve, quote, government of the people, by the people, for the people, he found the workers and independent farmers his strongest reliance for the national unity of the patriots of all classes, which was indispensable to victory. It is something like that again in the present war, many times greater than the war that Lincoln led. The new, worldwide Emancipation Proclamation for the National Liberation of All Peoples, signed by the United States, the Soviet Union, and Great Britain at Tehran, not only assures victory in the most dangerous war, but also opens a vast new prospect of economic well-being and peaceful construction in all countries. Comment: so this is exactly the kind of thing that didn't quite come to pass, and in fact, any Marxist who knew anything was like, what are you talking about? So again, phase 2 of this list is the massive opposition to these positions. Continuing, but the nation's policy of resolute war through to the victory and the destruction of Nazism and fascism is being challenged by a powerful defeatist movement. The national policy of war to victory is at stake in the 1944 elections, just as the war policy of Lincoln was at stake in the elections of 1864. The key to victory is national unity. Neither the war nor the coming national elections is a struggle for the special interests of any class. I could be commenting after basically every line of this, but just brace yourselves, it doesn't really get any better as we go on. Also, the other file that I uploaded, which is the most recent chapter of Fascism and Social Revolution by R.P. Dutt, is a nice counterweight and explanation of why this is just totally wrong. Anyway, continuing. Nevertheless, again, as in Lincoln's time, the strongest bulwark of the unity of the nation is necessarily to be found in the millions of workers and farmers. Instinctively, every worker feels that in a just war, the martial spirit and intelligent patriotism of the workers in the industries and trade unions and on the farms are bound to be the firmest foundation of the national unity. It is especially among these that the Communist Party must be built stronger. The Communist Party is indispensable to the strength and solidarity of the labor movement to pursue this course, the course which alone can receive united support of the labor movement and of the majority of the nation. It is more than ever necessary to organize politically the best members of the working class of our country. They must have the added strength and firmness which they can obtain only from education in the theoretical and practical use of the Marxist-Leninist science, and from communist political organization. Comment, by the way, what did Lenin have to say about what workers should do during an inter-imperialist war between imperialists? Revolutionary defeatism. The victory of one or the other imperialist is not our concern, neither can bring any historical progress. The communist position in that situation is not to pick a side, not to do lesser evilism, but to fight for social revolution. Is that what the Communist Party of the USA was doing? Continuing, in this drive to enroll new members, we place the first emphasis upon trade unionists. The conscious political activity of the members of the trade unions to aid in the solution of the problems of the nation has become the first necessity for the nation. So, commenting again, all this, the nation, this is essentially a class collaborationist in the worst possible sense approach. It is, in other words, opportunist, and it assumes that the communists are going to be somehow part of the post-war ruling coalition, which any Marxist could have told you again ahead of time that was extraordinarily unlikely unless the imperialists were going to adopt some completely new strategy for the preservation of their class dictatorship, and which history would show in the US just simply didn't happen at all. Continuing, particular attention must be paid to the enrollment of working women, whose place in the national life is increased by the coming of millions of girls and women into the industries and the trade unions. The finest of the young people now entering our industrial and trade union life by millions must be given the opportunity, through enrollment in the Communist Party, to develop their political understanding and their capacity in civilian life to support the efforts of their 10 million brothers in the armed forces. I'll tell you, we're on page 4 of the PDF out of 24. This is not fun. The Negro people must be given the opportunity to become members of the Communist Party as the best way to realize the slogan of the Communist Negro leader, Councilman Ben Davis, that the Jim Crow system can and must now be forever wiped out from the life of our country. It is necessary to enroll into the Communist Party the most active and devout church people, the Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish. The call for the building of the Communist Party is a call for the embodiment of the best human material into the most advanced and enlightened political organization of the people. It is in the finest traditions of the labor movement, in the finest traditions of America. It is in accord with the patriotic and military ardor of the freedom-loving peoples of all the world. It is in the spirit symbolized by Abraham Lincoln. Earl Browder. Last May, when the dissolution of the Communist International was announced, the New York Times and other papers voiced the demand that the Communist Party of the United States should also dissolve itself and disperse. At that time, I wrote a series of letters to the press in which I challenged the validity of this proposal, but expressed the readiness of the Communist Party to discuss this or any other question with any responsible spokesman of public life from the single standard of how best to win the war. My letters were reported to and approved by the June plenary session of our National Committee. We received no response from anyone to discuss this or any other proposals for changes in the form of activities of the communist movement in this country. At this meeting of our National Committee, we were faced only with the question, therefore, whether there are any changes which we ourselves, unilaterally and without discussion with anyone else, may find it expedient to adopt in the interest of the nation, of the war, and of the working class which we basically represent. Recently, we have published a pamphlet entitled A Talk About the Communist Party, a report of speeches made by myself in Detroit and Chicago to party membership meetings. The function and role therein described for the organization of communists, of Marxists, are permanent features of any such organization, whatever may be its name or immediate practical tasks. Such an organization, we are sure, must be maintained in the United States and must be built even stronger. We know that for the United States to be without such an organization would weaken our country internally and in its foreign relations. Internally, the organized Marxists furnish one of the most stable points of support and orientation for the whole democratic progressive camp. In foreign relations, they furnish the nation-essential experience in the necessary policies for dealing with communists in other lands, such as China, Yugoslavia, Italy, and France, where communist cooperation is absolutely inescapable if Europe and Asia are to be reorganized in a period of relative peace and order. From this point of view alone, the practical conclusion must be drawn that the continued and growing activity and organization of the communist movement in the United States are in the interest of the nation, of the war, and of an orderly world after the war. This is a conclusion which we believe inescapable not only for ourselves, but for all intelligent Democrats. There is not the same compelling fundamental reason why the organization should bear the name Communist. Here it comes. It is conceivable that a situation might exist in which another name would be practically more expedient, and in several countries that has been found to be the case by the Marxists of such lands. But it is our considered judgment that there is nothing in the situation of the United States which makes such a change from the name communist to something else an expedient one. It might even be detrimental in giving an opening to our enemies to create more confusion in the country by spreading suspicions that the new name is camouflage to cover direly sinister conspiracies. At the same time, the very name itself has the highest prestige of its history and is not to be discarded lightly and without the most serious necessity. Okay, so what are they doing instead? It is around the concept party rather than of communist that there exists today in America the most practical obstruction to our cooperative relationships with other democratic groups. What is called the, quote, two-party system in the United States is an old tradition which dominates most American minds. It recognizes as a party only that particular combination which is in power, and the combination of the opposition which is an immediate alternative to take power. All lesser political groupings are contained within the two major parties, which in fact are coalitions of many groups, which in most countries would be separate parties. Or if the lesser group takes the name of party and becomes one of the so-called minor parties, it is regarded as a sect, which has withdrawn itself from the practical political life of the nation. This two-party system has been tremendously strengthened and buttressed against the storms of constant political changes that go on within it by the system of direct primaries, which gives all voters the opportunity to enroll under one or other of the two major parties and participate in choosing its candidates, as well as the party committees and delegates to conventions. Comment, but as Marxist-Leninists, are we concerned with that? Are we concerned with bourgeois electoralism? No. We don't even run candidates in our parties unless there's a specific reason to do so. Otherwise, withdrawing from any possibility of being in the government and basically just upholding or enacting imperialist policy. So again, this is Browder pushing the line that the communists are going to go mainstream, that they're going to act within the Democratic Party, etc. Has this man ever read Lenin? Continuing, obviously, to realize the promise of Tehran, the broadest democratic progressive united front must be maintained in the United States. Equally obviously, the communists will be a part, and a small minority part, of that united front. The communist organization will be in a long-term alliance with forces much larger than itself. It follows from this fact that in the peculiar American sense of the word, the communists will not be operating as a, quote, party. That is, with their own separate candidates in elections, except under special circumstances when they may be forced to act through, quote, independent candidates. This is already our practical situation, and we are now extending the perspective of national unity for many years into the future. It is no longer a, quote, emergency situation, but is merging into a, quote, normal situation. Comment, everything about the study of fascism in the previous few decades said that the war was an indication that everything that imperialism was up to that point was breaking down, that there was no way out of the crisis permanently, that capitalism would have to resort to increasingly desperate means to save itself. So just thinking that, there's this perspective of, quote, national unity or class peace for many years into the future. I mean, did the CIA write this, or OSS, or whatever it was at that time? Because that's exactly the line that they would be pushing. They even cracked down with COINTELPRO. A lot of people have heard of COINTELPRO counterintelligence program, where the U.S. intelligence and law enforcement services cracked down on, quote, extreme politics. That included the right wing. They even reined in the KKK for a while, anticipating not needing them, but again, doing this national unity thing. So why is this supposed communist just playing directly into that? Continuing, all these considerations point to the expediency of a decision that the communist organization in the United States should adjust its name to correspond more exactly to the American political tradition and its own practical political role. So now we're into the practical realm of what communists can accomplish. Are we even talking about revolution at this point? If not, go be a social democrat. Just don't be a communist, because that's sort of one of the fundamentals. But anyway, he's not done. Such a decision would be that instead of being known as the Communist Party of the United States, our organization should call itself something like American Communist Political Association. Under such a name, we will find it much easier to explain our true relationship with all other democratic and progressive groupings which operate through the medium, in the main, of the two-party system and take our place in free collaboration at their side. Okay, but why? Eugene Dennis. A change from Communist Party to that of American Communist Political Association, by its very formulation, will markedly symbolize one of the main political conclusions at which we have arrived for the present and next period of political developments within the country. It will help show that our organization is not orientated upon a course of seeking governmental power now or in the post-war years immediately following. This change would, to some extent, serve to emphasize in broader circles that we are bending every effort to organize a national coalition of all patriotic, anti-fascist forces now and on the morrow, so as to speed the destruction of Hitler and the Axis, and to ensure and maintain a just and durable peace, under capitalism, something that's not possible. It should serve to focus attention on the fact that after the war, within the country, we are pursuing a course of unity of action to protect and improve our nation's democratic institutions and liberties, and to promote maximum production, employment, and social security within the framework of capitalism. Awesome. This is definitely what I want from my communists. I don't know about you. Obviously, there's another reason which points to the advisability of changing from party to association. In making such a change, we would not merely change our name, but also our electoral status. It is true that in so doing, we would lose the privilege of an electoral party, including the right to nominate and run a party ticket, a right which today is considerably curtailed. Yet, by so doing, we might obtain the right and opportunity to participate in one or another of the major election campaigns in conjunction with and along lines similar to that employed by the Farmer Labor Association of Minnesota, the United Labor League of Philadelphia, or the Washington Commonwealth Federation. And most important, we would be able more effectively to strengthen our collaboration with broader sections of the labor movement, which are developing greater political understanding and activity, but which in electoral campaigns operate through a vote for progressive candidates of one or another of the major parties or existing state farmer labor parties. As for the 1944 presidential and congressional elections, there can be no doubt that we will support the win-the-war candidates put forward from the camp of national unity, irrespective of party label. Certainly, the change which we propose from party to association should facilitate the practical application of our unity policy in these fateful wartime elections. It should facilitate our collaboration with the other political groups and labor forces during and after the elections, especially if we work correctly and convincingly to explain our move. It should remove certain artificial barriers which now hinder a large percentage of party members, including thousands of communist trade unionists, from working more closely together and in a normal fashion with other labor and progressive forces in one or another of the established party primary and election campaigns. Furthermore, it seems to me that the proposal to change from party to association is necessary and desirable from a longer-range viewpoint. For the outlook is that, after the 1944 elections, the political realignments which are now taking place and will continue to unfold most probably will crystallize in one of two ways, either by a basic regrouping within one of the major parties, in which labor and the popular forces would secure a leading political influence and position in many existing state, city, and precinct organizations, or, if this fails to materialize, it is likely that there may emerge a third party, nationally, as a leading and decisive mass party, based on unifying the labor and people's organizations in collaboration with the progressive forces from both existing major parties. So comment, what actually happened? Well, you did see a lot of labor groups active in the Democratic Party. However, there was basically decimation of the radical labor movement per se. We saw the labor movement as a whole peak around 1960 and then go into decline. And then today there's basically nothing left. Everything's been cut to the bone and we've got nothing. We barely even have a labor movement. Continuing, in either event, or whatever the specific form the crystallization of progressive, anti-fascist political alignments may take following the 1944 elections and in the immediate post-war period, the change of our own organization's name and electoral status can help advance the unity of the Democratic camp, the unity of communists and non-communists within the organization of a broad labor and progressive political alignment or party coalition, irrespective of its form. So comment, I can't help but think repeatedly of the phrase, the class independence of the proletariat. Acting politically, the proletariat must maintain its class independence. Otherwise, it's basically useless, and that's exactly what they're proposing here. Continuing, in considering a change in the name of the party, the question arises as to whether we might not also select some other name than communist. It is clear that conditions might arise in which such a change could or should be made. Such conditions might include considerations regarding a merger or unification of the Communist Party together with other groups of advanced anti-fascist labor forces to form a broader Marxist working class party, in which it might be desirable to choose a new name for the organization. Comment, but who are you merging with here? Because go back and see Lenin on unity. It means unity of Marxist forces, not unity of Marxist forces with anti-Marxist forces. So if you're doing your work as a party correctly, why wouldn't those forces just join the Communist Party, seeing that it is the Communist Party? And why would you be considering taking communist out of your name to make working with communists easier? That makes no sense. Continuing, but neither of these or similar factors exist today. There are no compelling political reasons for making such a move at this time. In fact, there is every reason today to maintain the name communist, as well as the Marxist-Leninist character of our organization, which will continue now and in the future. For the name communist has the greatest prestige and helps to signify the specific and distinctive characteristics of our organization as the most advanced and progressive political organization of the American working class, as an American Marxist political organization. The name Communist denotes better than any other our ultimate goal and programmatic objective. The name Communist is bound up with rich and lasting American and international working class traditions and with our own significant contributions to the cause of liberty, freedom, and social progress. Moreover, it is important not only that we make our solid contribution as communists to the nation, but also that we work openly and publicly as communists. This is really amusing considering what would happen just a few years later. As communists in name as well as in fact, this is important especially at present precisely in order to accelerate the growing collaboration of communists and non-communists, of that united action which is indispensable for the anti-fascist unity and future of our nation. These, then, are some of the reasons which, in my opinion, should influence us to retain the word and symbol communist in any new name which we may adopt at this time. Whatever final decision we may reach on what name to substitute for the word party, whether association, league, or society, we shall of necessity likewise have to change certain forms of our organization and methods of work. For instance, as already indicated, such a change will alter the forms of our electoral activity, in the sense that we shall no longer function during election campaigns as an electoral party with an official party ticket. Those communists who run for public office will run on one or another party ticket as candidates supported by a coalition of labor, progressive, and other patriotic forces, or in certain cases as independents. But whether or not communists run as candidates, and in the 1944 elections, this will be on a relatively limited scale, we communists will be called upon to multiply our mass work, including during the elections, in collaboration with the other sectors of national unity, with all win-the-war forces, especially with the trade unions. This will not only require the most active participation of the communists in labor's political organizations and campaigns, it will necessitate a great strengthening and expansion of our independent communist political activity. It will especially require that we vastly improve and multiply our mass agitation and propaganda, our communist political education mass work, nationally and on a local scale. It will further require that we bring about a radical improvement in the Marxist-Leninist training and development of all party personnel and members, particularly of our trade union cadres, so that we will be better equipped, theoretically and practically, to meet our great responsibilities, to solve the complex strategic and tactical problems of the new historical period which we are entering. Finally, it is clear that whatever changes we may make in our party's name and electoral status, the fundamental objectives and characteristics of our party will remain. For irrespective of name, we are and shall continue to be an American working class political organization guided by the science of Marxism-Leninism. And because of this, now and on the morrow, we shall be in the vanguard, defending and promoting at all times the vital interests and welfare of the working class and of our nation and people. Roy Hudson. The tasks of the working class in the light of the perspective raised by the Tehran Conference decisions require that labor develop such policies and organization as will enable it to enter into full collaboration as an independent political force with all other forces supporting Tehran. The maintenance of national unity and the ability of America to play the role required of it if the coalition is to be maintained depend upon the ability of labor to accomplish this task. Labor is now becoming an independent political force. Today, there does not prevail the traditional political apathy of the American trade union movement. Instead of being indifferent to the political struggle, it has been developing political understanding. Instead of rejecting political action is being undertaken on an ever broader scale. And what is of historic significance, the decisive section of the labor movement, the CIO, which incidentally would be gutted in less than a decade, has developed a political program which, if applied, will enable labor to become an independent political force. Didn't happen. It is around this program and those forces headed by Murray and Hillman, who are seeking to apply it, that the great majority of labor can find the means of becoming that independent political force capable of solving its historic tasks in relation to the Tehran Conference. The emergence of the working class as an independent political force is not in the main taking place organizationally around the Communist Party and the Communist program. We are, however, giving our full support to the program and activities of the progressive labor movement, non-revolutionary, which are aimed at organizing its political strength. We continue to make this the center of all our work because it is the key to the solution of all other problems. We communists see eye to eye with all other such forces, who are also seeking to organize the political strength of labor and are already actively collaborating with the most important of these forces. Yet this collaboration is capable of improvement, and we know that if this improvement is brought about, it will increase our ability to contribute and help strengthen labor's role. Comment: trying to reduce what communists do to organizing the political strength of labor is, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's like people who look at struggle for correct ideas as like left infighting. It's just people who have absolutely no understanding beyond a minimal surface level of what's going on in the history of the socialist movement, of Marxism, etc. And it's only by reducing the discussion down to these overly broad terms, ridiculously simplistic, that this opportunist and revisionist platform makes any kind of sense. And it does in that sort of, obeying common sense kind of way. That is to say, obeying the common bourgeois prejudices of how politics works and what is labor's role. Yeah, it sounds like it makes sense. Then you put your Marxist-Leninist hat back on and go, what am I reading? All right. At least one of the things that stands in the way of more effective collaboration is confusion regarding the role and program of the Communist Party. This is expressed in the doubts that exist as to whether collaboration on this basis with the communists is a short or long-term proposition. Those who accept collaboration with us undoubtedly speculate about the day when there will be a parting of company. Those who welcome our collaboration because they feel we have something to contribute are likewise still influenced to a great degree by doubts on this question. Even those who, while not sympathetic to communism, consider that we have an indispensable role to play, nevertheless are not without their doubts as to the long-range policy of our party. Thus, while we have and intend to continue to have a common objective with these forces, which is what? They have unjustified doubts which have a disturbing effect. The fact that we have the character of a political party does not help to clear up this question, and possibly, but put a question mark after that, makes it more difficult. Why? I believe that the change in the name will make it easier to clarify this question. Comment: I think if anything, let's say I was in that position of being one of those skeptics, I just think of it as like wolf in sheep's clothing. If you fundamentally don't trust them, then you would view anything that they do as, dubious of indication of some, ulterior motives, hidden agenda, because there's still going to be an international communist movement actually doing successful revolutions elsewhere in the world. Why would they think that you don't want that? And anyway, it just doesn't make sense again. Continuing, I believe that the change in the name will make it easier to clarify this question. If that is the case, then it will enable us to strengthen our collaboration with decisive forces, thereby speeding up the organization of the American working class as an independent political force. You think that trying to work within the Democrats is going to make you a more independent political force. Interesting. And firmly establishing the communists as an integral and accepted part of these forces. There are also an increasing number of extremely important forces who, in terms of their stand on every issue of the day and collaboration with us, are in every sense of the word communists, except that they don't have a card. These people know the direction in which the masses are moving politically, and that our policies and activities are decisive in helping the masses there. But too many of these people are still not certain that we will continue to move with the political movement of the mass of workers. But changing your name is going to do that? The change recommended will help remove such obstacles, and if these obstacles exist, their removal will enable us to recruit into our ranks many such people who will also help attract even far wider sections. I'm just at a loss here. Anyway, it has not always been possible for communists in some industries to fully make their influence felt as communists. Under those conditions, to have emphasized the fact that they were communists would only have been a help to those who sought to attack labor and disrupt its ranks. However, if the change in the name that has been recommended helps us to achieve those changes in our relationship with broader labor forces, but wait, you're not taking the communist part out, you're just not being a party anymore. It will also soon and very soon create those conditions where every communist trade unionist will be able to contribute a maximum in helping to determine our policies, in helping more directly lead our movement, build it, and increase its influence among the masses. And if this comes about, if the trade unionists have greater opportunities to make their contribution in the direct work and leadership of our movement, it will be important indeed. But will they be communists? Anyway, the change in our name to the American Communist Political Association is a step that is indispensable at this time if we communists are to make our maximum contribution to strengthen national unity behind the decisions of the Tehran Conference. It will enable us to ensure that labor will rise to its historic tasks. It will enable us to enlist new thousands for support of the principles of Marxism-Leninism, which Earl Browder has taught us to apply to American conditions. John Williamson. As a consequence of Tehran and the perspectives agreed upon for the period of post-war reconstruction, one of the conclusions recommended in Comrade Browder's report is the change of the term party in the title of our organization to association. This conclusion is very important to our relations with all other forces of the Win the War coalition in our country. Unquestionably, this will be a subject of tremendous public discussion, in which we want our party members to participate not only within the party confines, but beyond, to help to bring clarity to workers and to the people generally. This will help cement our relations, politically and organizationally, with new hundreds of thousands of Americans. So comment, this is the fourth and final essay in this pamphlet. This has been claimed by all of the authors so far. I have yet to hear a single convincing argument why changing the name from party to association is going to cement the relations politically and organizationally with new hundreds of thousands of Americans. Either people buy into anti-communist propaganda or they give it a chance and hear it out. I mean, party versus association, you think that is going to be the sort of pivotal, the thing that this just all hinges on. Seems empty and seems like a lie, to be quite honest. The better to understand this recommendation for the change of name, we must avoid two initial reactions, one the extreme of the other. Either that the change would mean little and that we would function as before, or that our role as a Marxist organization based on the working class would be liquidated or replaced, that the Communist Association would be less important than the Communist Party. In light of the perspectives and the political condition Comrade Browder outlined, what will be the political function of such a communist organization? Indeed, wherefore such an organization? And let me add, excellent questions, because I think that this guy actually knows how this comes across to most people, that either you're just changing the name, but it's not going to affect anything else, rose by any other name, and all of that stuff, or you're liquidating the party, but why would you just change the name? What else are you going to be? And isn't that liquidating the party? Well, anyway, such an organization is indispensable, and its political influence and organizational strength must be multiplied many times over because... So wait a minute, that doesn't answer the question at all. You're just talking about why an organization is so indispensable, but how does the name change play into it, I think is the actual question. But okay, such an organization is indispensable, and its political influence and organizational strength must be multiplied many times over because, first, as history has so amply attested, our Marxist-Leninist theory and program enable us, in distinction from all other forces, even within the coalition, to understand events, foresee their course, evaluate the relationship. I mean, theoretically, yes, actual people applying Marxism-Leninism definitely can foresee the course of events much better than, bourgeois theorists and so on. But is that what's going on here? Because the predictions Browder laid out are worthless. Anyway, evaluate the relationship of forces and groups within the country and help influence and determine the direction of events. Secondly, a Marxist political organization of the type envisaged is indispensable because of the urgent need to facilitate and speed up the unity and greater organization of the labor movement and to raise the political understanding of the workers to new levels, commensurate with their responsibilities. In other countries, because of the absence of a two-party system such as we have, the direction of accomplishing this is through the affiliation or integration of the Marxist forces with the mass political parties of the workers. Okay, no, but then it gets better. In the USA, as yet, there is no mass political party of labor. Okay, great plan. It is definite, however, that the working class in our country is maturing politically and is finding organizational forms other than a labor party of national scope, even as it moves in the direction of independent working class political action. Blinking furiously here. What am I reading? As a Marxist political organization, we have an especially great responsibility during this year of the fateful 1944 elections. We must facilitate this political development of labor and help achieve the maximum political unity of all labor as a part of the great coalition behind the commander-in-chief in the 1944 elections. Lenin's spinning engrave. The understanding, unity, and above all, the political organization of labor in the wards and congressional districts as an integral and vital part of the Win the War coalition of all classes and patriotic Americans can well be decisive in ensuring victory this year. How will the Communist Association conduct its day-to-day mass work? Just as now. Okay, so anyway, communists will continue to help build, activate, and participate in leading trade unions and all people's organizations. Within these organizations, they will contribute their best in ideas and activity and will subordinate themselves to majority decision. We will, as an organization, react to all vital issues in the communities, cities, or nation that concern the people. We will strive wherever possible to stimulate the organizing of the broadest mass movement around such issues on an effective program, and as a communist organization, become an integral part of this mass movement. In the field of electoral activities, as part of the labor movement or of other people's organizations, among Negroes, national groups, women, church people, or youth groups, communists will participate as individuals in those political parties or support such candidates as represent the best interests of our nation, in accordance with the principles of strengthening the Win the War coalition for victory and an enduring peace. Wherever communists are active in such people's organizations or coalitions, they have had and have no reason to aim at, quote, capturing them. On the contrary, our aim is to collaborate with all other people's forces. Our only desire is to contribute to the common goal, to assume responsibility and activity with all our ability, and to participate in leadership to the extent that the majority desires. In our own activity as an organization, we shall be able less and less to get along with the old formulas and practices. Our activities as an organization will have to be examined in the light of new events and experiences. It is already clear that increased emphasis must be placed on education and mass propaganda. The press, literature, schools, etc. must occupy 100 times more of our time and effort than they do today. Does this mean that we're reducing ourselves to a mere propaganda organization? Nothing of the kind. At this moment, when leadership by example in all fields of mass work, especially in the labor movement, among the Negro people and the national groups, among the women and professionals, is so urgent for victory in the 1944 election, political clarity and understanding, this is emphasized here in italics, political clarity and understanding are a decisive contribution toward and an organized part of effective mass political action and organization. I really don't know why that was emphasized. The, quote, Communist Association, as a workers' political educational organization, will be fulfilling its Marxist vanguard role to the American people and nation. Let us examine further the content of the work of the members of such a communist organization. The increased emphasis on education will be directed first of all to our own members, and to those sections of the labor and people's movement with whom we are collaborating. But in addition, by utilization of all educational weapons, the daily worker, the communist, the new masses, the Marxist-Leninist classics, as well as popular literature, schools, forums, and debates, we shall increase our efforts to make our thought and principles available to the people in all communities. It is clear that regular reading by every communist of the daily worker and the communist becomes 100 times more urgent than ever now. While the average thinking worker learns through struggle and experience, that is not enough for us. We must study. We must understand Marxist-Leninist principles in order to help influence the course and outcome of struggles, whether it be a single struggle or the developments in the nation and the world. We also learn from our participation in the struggles how better to apply the strategy and tactics of our policies and how to enrich Marxist-Leninist theory itself. The first piece of literature for the current recruiting campaign, Earl Browder's A Talk About the Communist Party, is as indispensable for the party member as for the prospective recruit. That pamphlet says, quote, the first responsibility of party membership is that each one of us has to systematically improve his own mind. The more the members educate themselves and the more consciously they organize their own self-education, the stronger they emerge as party members and party leaders. One of the shallow misconceptions of the party is that once you join the party, you can stop thinking for yourself, that the party does the thinking for you and hands down the decisions, and all you have to do is to be a disciplined member and carry them out, unquote. The whole emphasis in Comrade Browder's pamphlet is to root out such misconceptions. It stresses the need of raising the level of understanding of the individual party member and the strengthening of his own ability to answer all problems that arise. It points out that the accomplishment of this aim will greatly strengthen the collective thinking and actions of the party. This understanding is particularly essential today in finally completing the transfer of trade union comrades to community branches and actively involving them in community branch activity. The Communist Association is conceived as a Marxist political educational organization. Therefore, it will not stand on the sidelines merely educating or propagandizing. Even more than now, but with better political equipment, we will react to and develop mass activity around all vital issues affecting the workers and the people as a whole, whether in a neighborhood, a shop, an industry, or in the nation itself, and we will join with all others in advancing all progressive causes. But again, the name change, like what is the relationship here? Because I still don't see it and we're approaching the end. We are not yet prepared to give answers. Oh, well, here we go. We are not yet prepared to give answers to all questions as to the form of organization. So you're really just pulling this out of your ass. That's really incredible. In the course of preparing for the National Convention, these will have to be worked out, you think? But even now, and this is emphasized again, it is clear that for us as an organization, the present community form of club or branch is the best and should continue. So you're keeping your same structure. All right. Changes in structure would only be necessary to facilitate our working freely as communists as part of election coalitions, i.e. to elect non-communists. Now, what are the perspectives of growth of the Communist Association? We have a right to expect that, in this period of intense political thinking and activity of the American people, increasing numbers of workers will want to learn the answers to the complex problems before them. There is a tremendous desire among them to see the road that lies ahead to social progress. They will want to come together in political association with one another, and will be ready to join an organization that represents their views. Since we know that the Communist Association will facilitate and help promote unity, understanding, and activity, and that joining will not limit the mass activities of its members, we feel that the attractive power of this organization is great and that it will grow. But again, what is the case for that being different from the way that it used to be or that the party, was at the time of this writing? The new developments and the changes recommended at this plenum make it possible to win many thousands of new recruits to a Marxist organization at a tempo that has not been possible previously. Why? Because, finally, some attempt to explain this again. I mean, there's been some attempt to explain it before, but not clearly. 1. The methods of functioning that we shall adopt will make clearer and emphasize to the prospective recruit the possibility of supporting Marxist policies through membership in the Communist Association without leaving his or her own mass organization. While this is true even today, so that's not a change. I was going to say that could be affected through a policy change in the party, but that wasn't even the policy. So while this is true even today, it has not always been fully understood, and some of our branches have contributed to this misunderstanding. Well, again, a name change may not help if that is actually the source of the problem. 2, to those trade unionists who always say that their union is taking on political forms of activity, and therefore they're waging the same fight that we are, and that it is not necessary to belong to a political organization, we should be able to point out more convincingly that trade union struggle alone is not enough. How is a Communist Party less able to point that out, honestly? Membership in a communist organization, which is in no sense a, quote, competing organization, will help them. But again, is this like number 1, where this is true even today, but you're just saying that somehow it's going to make a difference when it isn't? Anyway, we'll help them through the acquisition of Marxist understanding on current issues of the day to be more effective workers and leaders in their unions and mass organizations. So again, not a convincing reason at all. 3, these changes should also stimulate widespread recruiting by enabling us to come to grips still more boldly and effectively with the slanderous misconception that communists are not part of American life, but are agents of somebody or another. We will force people to discuss their ideas and proposals on their merits, not under conscious or unconscious misconceptions. And you really think that not calling yourself a party but an association is going to accomplish that? That's amazing. And, of course, I think that was not what anyone actually thought. These are just terrible reasons being provided. There's something else going on. Continuing. Our present and future members should everywhere take their place as Marxists, defending their rights and ideas publicly and winning supporters. In the course of such defense of Marxist policies, recruiting should be a normal activity. To those who may think that it is not decisive whether we carry through to success the present recruiting campaign, I would emphasize 1. The fact that a stoppage in the steel industry can still take place on the very day that General Eisenhower is announced as the commander of the Second Front demonstrates the crying need for a larger party and a more politically equipped party membership among the steel workers. There are similar conditions and provocations in other industries, the electrical radio industry, for example, and yet the workers and their leaders have not committed the blunder as in the steel industry. Comment. So they're saying that there shouldn't be strikes or work stoppages in the steel industry. So here's the thing. There was officially a no-strike pledge during World War II. The reality is that there was a record number of strikes. So here you've got the social patriot Communist Party of the USA standing up for the US government, for the US bourgeoisie generally, in the face of rising amounts of strikes. You know, something more akin to revolutionary defeatism. Continuing, that shows greater understanding and undoubtedly greater ability to influence the workers and to seek alternatives to strikes. Fuck you. It also reflects a larger and more influential party membership in these industries. Another example was the splendid struggle of the Transport Workers Union in New York. The TWU was subjected to 100 times greater provocation and difficulty than the steelworkers, yet not only did they refuse to strike, but they substantially won their demands. Well, I mean, good for them for winning their demands, but this is really something else. Furthermore, with the support of the labor and progressive movement, they carried their victory over into the councilmanic elections. Fulfillment of the present recruiting campaign will help guarantee uninterrupted production and defeat of defeatists like Lewis within the labor movement. It will help patriotic labor leaders and workers find effective answers to strike provocations while defending the workers' interests. It is possible in this campaign to get hundreds of leaders of trade unions, Negro mass organizations and churches, women's organizations, national group organizations, committee and youth organizations to join our party with thousands of rank-and-file members. So you're basically just bringing non-communists into your party. I feel like I'm reading something written by the Democratic Party, but anyway. Recently, a section organizer in a large industrial section of the Midwest reported the instance of a union leader of a local of over 10,000 members who has collaborated with the party, reads its press, and agrees with its program. He was approached to join the party and agrees, but correctly wants to join openly before the whole world. Asked if he thought the workers would disagree, he was sure they would not, since he has been called a communist for years and still gets elected to office. In such a case, it would be well for such a leader, upon joining the party, association, to place the matter before several hundred of his shop stewards and active members, telling them that being constantly called a communist made him get acquainted with the program and the policies of the communists, and that he then found his own ideas corresponded to those of the party. He should then inform them that although he knows every American, including himself, has the right to any political opinion and membership in any political party, he has decided to tell them about his action. Of course, he will explain that this does not commit the Union to his political viewpoint any more than any other local is committed to the Republican or Democratic Party if its president happens to belong to either of these parties, or that a Catholic in the office of local union president commits the local to Catholicism. We're really leaning hard into American political myths right here. If this union leader agrees to this procedure, I am confident of what the answer of the stewards will be. His communist membership will then be taken out of any mystery status, and he will be still more effective as a union leader. And again, this is because you changed the name from party to association. I am sure that there are hundreds of trade union leaders who can be recruited in this present campaign. 2. The success of the present recruiting campaign is also linked with victory in the 1944 elections. 20,000 additional communists can mean several times that number additional active workers in joint labor committees in the wards and congressional districts, in the CIO community councils, and in the ward and precinct clubs of the Win the War coalition. Another emphasized paragraph. It is possible to guarantee the success of the recruiting campaign by connecting it with a well-organized enlightenment campaign inside and outside the party. Let the new member join with us in hammering out clarity and understanding, in answering every question in anyone's mind that remains unclear, in mobilizing labor and the people to guarantee victory in 1944. The question may arise, does not the proposed change of name from party to association, or the dissolution of shop and industrial branches, mean a departure from Leninist organizational principles? I'm not sure we actually mentioned the dissolution of shop and industrial branches, but it's not a liquidation, folks. The answer is no. A real understanding of Marxist-Leninist theory means learning its substance. I could picture a juggler in my mind at this point. Learning to use it as a guide in the solution of the practical problems that arise under the specific conditions of each country and epoch. The substance of this specific feature of Leninist organizational principles is that the communist political organization, already equipped with correct policies and perspectives, constantly maintains and strengthens its maximum contact with the working class, teaches as well as learns from the workers, and is thus able to win broad support from the workers and become a larger and more influential workers' political educational organization. But again, how do you get from here to there through that? The only scrap of a convincing argument I have heard in this whole pamphlet, and we're basically on the last page, is the thing about people don't take, quote, third parties seriously. But it should also be incumbent on a communist party to present itself not merely as another party for the bourgeois government, because that's not what it's about. So there's your way around that. And also, if you're not telling people that, you're misleading them about the basic nature of communism. But it seems to me increasingly from reading this that a departure from the basic nature of communism, Marxism, the movement for communism, whatever you want to call that, that's exactly what we're interested in here in this pamphlet. So the proposed changes in name and branch organizational forms correspond to the realities of the present situation. So I just have to add also this whole thing about adapting to particular conditions. Using dialectics to lie to people, to me, is one of the most dishonorable and just disgusting things. I absolutely cannot stand. It's the meme today of like, it's dialectical, you see. No, it isn't. You're just fucking lying. And actually, you're disgracing the name of dialectics by doing that. And here you have a pamphlet where all four authors are basically just parroting the exact same things, the exact same lies. And it just makes the organization seem, well, not respectable in any way. Continuing. The proposed changes in name and branch organizational forms correspond to the realities of the present situation and will be the medium of bringing us closer to the millions of organized workers and the people generally. Changing from party to association will facilitate the further strengthening of the coalition for winning the war and ensuring a durable peace in the post-war Reconstruction years, dissolving the shop and industrial branches and adopting the exclusive form of community branch, under present-day conditions in our country, does not lessen our contact with the masses. On the contrary, it makes it possible politically to clarify and mobilize our members on all urgent questions confronting the labor movement and the nation, to become active wherever our members are in contact with workers, including shops, local unions, and communities. So, I mean, why not? The dissolution of the shop branches, what is that about? I missed that. I was reading this out loud. If it was in there, I missed it. But anyway, head spinning. Under present day conditions, and just continually repeating under the current conditions without ever reasonably explaining that or convincingly explaining that, it just makes you sound like you're using Marxist terminology to lie to people. And that is, you're lying to the wrong people. You know what I mean? Marxists are some of the sharpest, most critical people that there are. Things like this just don't really fly. But anyway, provides the most effective organizational form for functioning as an American political organization, influencing, inspiring, and mobilizing broad sections of the people and the nation's victory drive. The dissolution of the shop and industrial branch removed an outworn organizational form which threatened to create artificial barriers between communists and non-communists in the trade unions. Make that case. We're on the last sentence here. That case has not been made. And thus weaken the struggle for maximum unity and threaten the closest relationship between our party and the masses. And that's the end of the pamphlet, except for one thing, this graphic. For Victory by United States War Bonds and Stamps. Yes, they actually put this inside the rear cover of a pamphlet published by the National Committee of the Communist Party. So there you go. I'm super glad to be done with that. I felt like I was just reading lies, so What we're going to get to next in this playlist is the responses. We're going to go back to the book that we started, Marxism-Leninism versus Revisionism, which is an anthology of pieces by William Z. Foster, Jacques Duclos, and others in response to this madness that was unfolding. And finally, finishing out this playlist, we're going to go even to some critics of those folks. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, in the meantime, my comments are done. I'm just happy to be turning this off now. What do you think? Leave a question or comment below. We'll continue the discussion in the comments section, as always. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and thanks again to the current patrons and Buy Me a Coffee supporters whose names are on the screen. If you'd like to get your name on the screen, head to patreon.com/socialismforall or buymeacoffee.com/socialismforall. You can sign up for as little as a few dollars a month or more, or on Buy Me a Coffee, you can do a one-time donation, whatever you see fit. Every contribution is encouraging. They're also materially helpful, and they allow me to spend more time on this channel than I'd be able to do otherwise. We are now entering our 5th year, and I think that the channel has a pretty good trajectory that it's on, and I've got some plans for what we're going to do. So again, those contributions allow me to consistently plan and upload more and more stuff for you. And remember, for every hour that you see uploaded to one of the channels, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Substack, for every hour of actually finished content, there's like 3 to 4 times that much that went into the making of it. So beyond that, engagement counts, like, share, subscribe. Again, leave a comment, even if it's thanks or good video. And remember, you can agitate and educate online, but the final and really crucial step, organizing, that takes place in real life. Connect with your local left. If you're in a city, there are probably multiple left groups that you can get involved with. Probably not a lot of them are going to be communist, or if they are, they're going to be small. But see what you can do. The class struggle is going on everywhere. Get involved. Fight for correct positions within the organization. Obviously, within reason, certain things like the Democratic Party are not suitable forums for ideological struggle, but do what you can. If you're in a more rural area, you might have to join something on more of a countywide, statewide, regional, or even national basis. But again, there are still contributions that you can make. Also, do network with people within your local left, because sometimes there are things going on that you can't always find on the internet, can't always see on the surface, but other people may be starting up and you can get involved with that. All right, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.